This episode is sponsored by Fraze Flowers, a Western New York family-run flower farm and floral preservationist. They offer unique and one-of-a-kind pressed flowers in the shape of buffaloes. Every buffalo is handcrafted, and because they are made with flowers, each one has its own look and personality.
You can get a hold of them on their website at fraseflowers.com. That's Frase flowers.com, or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Bring more joy and color into your life at Fraze Flowers. What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, March 14th, 2025. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil, episode 342. Phil, it's been a beautiful weather week. It's been a little cold the last couple days, but it's supposed to be in the 70s this weekend. I was doing a lot of yard work, a lot of outdoor stuff, kind of staining some molding because we're having a 4th of July. Man, I think I said that on our interview.
What is with the 4th of July?
Yeah, I said that on the interview on Wednesday that dropped as well with JC Sullivan. Go look for that on our all our sites.
But for PK to talk about the 4th of July.
Yeah, that. But St. Patrick's Day is Monday, and this weekend is kind of all the parties for it. But we're trying to get the house all situated and as completed, so we're not in the middle of projects, I would say.
Cleaned up-ish.
Yeah, cleaning, staining, finishing up any odd projects, and kind of getting the 3 to 4 rooms we've been working on for the last 4 months completed in like a week. So we've been running crazy. But yeah, the nice weather has definitely helped, and kind of opening some windows, letting the house air out. I mean, I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing over in the Phil studio there, but kind of just airing out the stuffiness that has been built up for months now, especially around Western New York. That tends to happen.
Yeah, it's always really nice when it's something we missed this winter. When it got cold, it stayed cold, which is, I feel like, rarer recently in Buffalo winters. Usually it gets cold and then it'll heat up a little bit and then get cold again. This time it got cold and just stayed really cold. Nothing really melted. Everything was frozen. So it's nice to get these little bit of warm-up days. Like you said, open the windows, get some fresh air. What's not nice is having to remember to flip your car every single night as I start my car in the morning, and sometimes I leave it on air conditioning because when I leave in the afternoon it's warm, so then fire up the car in the morning when it's cold again and get in my car and it's just been blasting AC and like, oh, whoops, forgot to switch it back. Not what I wanted, but I mean, it still gets the car going, so it still heats up a little quicker, but I do have to keep reminding myself as I leave the car to switch it back to heat for the morning. Usually forget.
Yeah, I tend to do that. It's almost to the time of the year where you have to wear a sweatshirt or a jacket to work, and then by the time you're coming back, that stuff's already off, and you got to remember.
That's what I've done the last 3-4 days.
Yeah, you got to remember to grab it as you're leaving work to throw it in your truck, and then you got to also remember to grab it from your vehicle to bring it in the house, along with switching it over from, the AC to the heat. But we got a jam-packed show. The trade deadline happened, and we got a ton to go over. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can also check out our store on our link tree on all our social media sites, or at the top of the website by just hitting the shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. A couple more house cleaning things to clean up. Like I already mentioned off the top, I interviewed JC Sullivan from the Calgary Roughnecks ahead of Bandits versus Roughnecks Part 2. That came out on Wednesday. It's actually the 4th episode of our interview series that comes out every Wednesday, interviewing somebody next on the Bandits schedule, and obviously it's the Roughnecks again, so I got another person from the Roughnecks. She was great. Very informative, and I know you enjoy the podcast as well. And then also, 8 days from now, we're still taking over Tap That Tap Room. They have not locked the doors on us yet. They have not canceled on us yet. surprised a little bit. But March 22nd, Bandits versus Firewolves. Got plenty of merch. The merch is being delivered to my house on Saturday. We're going to get first looks at it. That is going to kind of complete. We got another bonus thing that we'll announce probably next week. We'll start announcing some of the stuff next week as leading up to it. But again, event is completely free. This is not one that we're trying to charge tickets to even come in the door. The only thing you're going to have to spend your money on is either the drinks there to support Tap That Tap Room, and not even support it, just enjoy your time there, because 30 rotating taps is just ridiculous. And the food that they got there as well. You don't have to look for a bartender, nothing. We'll get into that as we go down.
Or bring your own food if you want.
Or just bring your own food. That too. But let's pack the house. Like I said, the weather's coming up, so I'm going to be able to read it a little bit better next weekend. If it was this weekend, that would have been fun, but we pushed it to next weekend. Try to push people on the patio, but very excited for that, and look forward to 2 interviews next Wednesday. But yeah, go back and listen to JC Sullivan's interview with us on last Wednesday. Well, 2 days ago, I should say. But diving into it now, Sabres Monday versus Edmonton, 3-2 win. It was a solid victory. Tage had 2, Tuck had 1, UPL 32 of 34 saves. Shots were 34-23 in favor of the Sabres. Their power play stunk, but who cares? It was a very good game from Josh Norris in his second game with the Sabres. And then Wednesday happened versus Detroit, and it's the true 14 years of the Buffalo Sabres, the flip-flop. They lost 7-3. Yes, it was a bit closer until the third period, and then Detroit just kind of put your foot on the throat and just ended you. Tage scored, Norris first as a Sabre, and Benson scored. UPL 22 of 29 saves. Shots were 29-25 in favor of Detroit. Buffalo 1 for 3 on the power play. This is what killed Buffalo. Detroit was 3 for 5 on the power play. Again, they held a 1-0 lead in this one. Then 3 in less than 7 minutes in the first for Detroit. It was 4-3 after 2, and then here's Buffalo sitting 25, 33, and 6. 18 games left in the schedule, Phil. We're getting close.
Can't wait to the favorite time of the Sabres most recently, which is talking about the draft. We get to get excited about a player we're not going to see for 6 years.
We don't have to talk about him for a while. That's my favorite time.
That's also true. But yeah. Norris did look good, especially in the Edmonton game. I was doing my article for the Bandits through on ESPN Plus, and for once it wasn't blacked out. I don't know why, but I was actually able to watch the Sabres for a little bit, so I had it on in the background and was keeping a close eye on it because it was a close game and they were winning, and I was excited. I was like, oh, look at them go, and I even mentioned to you, I was like, hey, Norris had a great forecheck and a great little play to get to Tage, and he looks good. He looks good. He looks fast. He looks like what the Sabres needed. I think the Sabres deal ended up not. I mean, it's extremely way too early to say it worked in their favor. But I think getting Cousins off the team, I don't think he would have done anything here anymore, which we already talked about. I think Norris already has provided a spark that he wasn't providing, and we'll see how it goes over time, as usually that flicker of energy dies over a few losses here and there, as we saw a little bit. Not saying he's a bad player, but Bo Byram came out on fire when he got traded, and now he's really melded with the Sabres and their new philosophy of being terrible. Not that he's terrible, but it's just a draining place to play, as we've seen. So we'll see how he does. But so far, Norris looks really good, and like we said, if he can stay healthy, he looks fast, he looks athletic, he looks big, he looks strong, he looks talented. So good early return signs from him.
Yeah, we're going to do the flip-flop on this. You gave the positive. I'll give you the negative. Detroit game, I don't want to pile on this player, so I'm not even going to mention his name, but there's a very tall player who always seems to be on the ice when things happen. I was very high on him to start. I actually supported the contract that he got, and now I'm ready for him to be off this team. He shouldn't be wearing an A on his sweater. He shouldn't be on the Sabres ever again. It's just, this is now twice that he has been on the ice during a situation and has pretty much done nothing. Like, Benson skated from the other side of the rink to get involved in it. Benson's like, what, 5'8"? And he's
what did I say? What did I say last time?
Soaking wet. Yeah,
who was the player?
But this guy's twice the size, and all he does is just bear hug somebody. Like, in this sport, and I've never played competitive hockey, so don't hear what I'm not saying, but I've been in situations where you're asked to do something you might not want to do. there are times where you're going to have to do something you don't want to do to stick up for your teammates. And I don't want to hammer this home because it's 18 games left and it's been a dumpster fire of another season. But it's just, at what point does this player just not get on the ice anymore? Like, if Lindy Ruff of old was this head coach, like not this soft tissue paper Lindy Ruff that's there now, and I don't care. Like, I'm calling him out at this point. Like, he is part of the problem now because he inherited this team, yeah, but they're still playing soft. Like, credit to Tage Thompson, credit to Alex Tuck for stepping up when they needed to, but you still have way too many soft players on this team, and he didn't rip them a new one. So until that happens, he's part of the problem. But on top of that, it sounds like full go that Kevin Adams is back. It sounds like full go Lindy Ruff's back. Can I at least beg for different assistant coaches next year? And I don't think I'm getting it with Seth Appert. It sounds like he's the chosen one, the beautiful brainchild of everything, and his power play absolutely stinks to high heaven. But it's just some kind of change. Like, Matt Ellis is still a part of this franchise. Like, I need some type of change somewhere to give some type of glimmer that they care. Not even hope, because I've been on the record for weeks now, maybe a month. They're never making the playoffs ever again. Like, ever. So I need some type of change just to not pound my head in the wall next October. So just some type of change come the offseason. I know we got 18 more games, like a month and a half left of this pile of poop. But yeah, that's all I got with this one. It's just, it's the same thing over ever.
I just don't know how you go back to the locker room.
How do you go back to the locker room the first time? This is not the first time.
Right. But then the second time, like, how do you look your fellow teammates in the face, knowing you're wearing an A, knowing that you're a big boy on the team, so you're the one who is, like you said, it's not something that he might want to do, but you are the player to do it. Benson, who I said last time this happened, that if he was on the ice, he would be the one to go and mix it up, which is ridiculous. And exactly that example, he comes flying down the other side of the ice, and he's the one to mix it up. And that shouldn't be the guy who you're asking to mix it up. He should not be the one who wants to get in for his teammates. I'm glad he is. He's got that Gerby fire out there fighting Zdeno Chara like a madman. Who the heck does that at whatever he was, 5'6"? It's the same kind of fire that Benson has. Like, I love it. Yeah. The whole team needs that, but how your big man with an A on his chest isn't having that same intensity is the problem. And then to go back to the locker room and be able to even look Benson in the face, like, hey, this guy's half your size, and he's willing to get in there, but you're not willing to do anything. Like, I just don't get it.
He bear hugged the guy. He bear hugged him.
Right. That's, congrats. Anyway.
Yeah, they have a game Saturday versus Vegas at home. Jack Eichel, just go out there and score 4 goals, please. A lot of people have forgotten that you wanted out of here, and I think a lot of people have now seen the light and kind of came to the side that we were on, where it was like, yeah, I don't blame him whatsoever. And
I do think, because I've made this analogy a few times now, I think the Sabres are officially just the Pittsburgh Pirates of the NHL. We will take new young talent, we will develop that, and we will ship it out to go win a Stanley Cup elsewhere. Congratulations.
You're welcome. We are your farm system for everyone else. Even Yoki Haru had a fantastic game in Boston the other day. So, yeah, it's not the players, it's the franchise that just stinks. But we'll move on here. BSC game update. For those of you who participated this year, we're going to looking to grow it and make it even better for next year. But that's next year. We're in this year. Jackson B still holds the number 1 spot, 913. But Phil is inching closer in the number 2 spot. That lead is down to 19. Jackson B, he's right on your tail with 894. I am slipping further down. I'm still in third, but the lead Phil has over me is from 57 to now 61. I got 833. Kim D holds down the number 4 spot, 814. 1814 would have been glorious. Tim K moves up 1 spot to 5th. 806. Brooke K falls down 790, down 1. Janelle L moves up 2 spots to number 7, 769. Nice. Mike D, 762, down 1. Stacy K down 1 to 9, 761. And Nick B and Chris M are tied for top 10, 751. Chris M moves up 3 spots. For all of you who are looking, producer Pat falls down 1 to number 16 at 716. And Jediah, would you pronounce her name Jediah biggest riser, up 4 to number 22. I did a little bit more in depth here, Phil, because we're going to talk about it in a second. Sam LaRue's out the door and Matt Spanger's out for the season. 9 teams had either Sam LaRue or Matt Spanger. Or Matt Spanger. 1 team had both. This is not a good situation. Like I said, there's still so much season left. There's 7 more games to go, but it doesn't help when one of your players gets traded and another one is done for the season.
No, it's tough. At that point, you're kind of hoping for injuries from others, but at the same time, we're all Bandits fans, so you don't want injuries for anybody. So kind of just got to take the L and hope nothing else bad happens. But top 10, getting a little bit interesting. There's some crunch numbers up there. Farrell did terrible, so that's kind of why I inched a little bit closer. I didn't want him to do that poorly, but he did. But Nick Weiss, I need a Hattie from him to really make up some ground, and then we'll be right there.
Yeah, you need like 5 blocks from Paul Dawson. And
that'd be nice. Oh, my gosh. They had 5 combined last game. That didn't help.
But I don't know if any NLL fans or Buffalo Bandits fans were kind of under a rock or just not on social media. In case we are your
only source of information here.
If this is your only source of information, you got to expand your wired system.
Horizons, but we got you covered.
Horizons, that's a way. But we're going to talk about it because this is our show and we do what we want. Trade deadline happened on Monday, and it went from me not expecting anything because Toronto won, Albany won, Vegas doesn't really have anything, to holy cow. Just before we dive into it, remember you can still sign street free agents on your roster through the rest of the season, but if you want them to play in the playoffs, April 5th is the deadline for that. There's still some good street free agents out there, so if more players get hurt or what have you, as long as they're signed by April 5th and are on the active roster, they can play in the playoffs. But like I said, trade deadline, we're going to kind of break this down one by one. The first one we'll talk about because it's a quicker one. Vegas trades James Barclay to San Diego for Justin Sykes and a 2026 second rounder. To me, this seemed like it was a UFA that was not going to sign back in Vegas. Joe Tsai trades from one team to another to help his San Diego boys on the back end. He's going to be a UFA. They get a younger player and a pick for it, so I think that's good dealing by Vegas to get out from a player who is not going to be around in their franchise next season, wants to probably come back east is from what I'm hearing, and can help San Diego's back end. You get a young player and an early second round pick likely in the draft that's supposed to have a ton of young players that are studs in it.
Yeah, no, that seems like a good start for them. I mean, Vegas was one of the few teams that is truly long gone this season. So, like you said, you don't want to lose players for nothing, especially at that situation where if you truly think he's going to head back east, I'm sure they had conversations with him, behind closed doors. Hey, do you have any interest in coming back or not? So this way you do get something out of it. Like you said, 2026 second, when the Bandits, we'll just talk about in a little bit, got a second in return. I was psyched because that, like you said, that draft, it seems like 2025 is solid. 2026 is even better, and 2027 should also be a solid draft. So even though these future picks are pretty far off, it seems like it. I mean, those drafts are supposed to be loaded. So anytime you hear any picks being traded for 25, 26, 27, they're going to be really, really good picks to have. So I think they did a really nice job getting something for somebody who could have left for nothing.
So there's 2 more big trades we're going to talk about, but before we dive into that, that's a teaser there for you, Phil. We're going to get into our second sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. It's Buffalo's first woman-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer varieties of beers, ciders, seltzers, sours, and malt beverages. Check out their website, and I know Phil's going to go into it, but I absolutely love the feature that you can check out their website to find out what's on tap and what's on deck because it's fantastic. You know what you're going to get before you even get there.
First and foremost, they have happy hour tomorrow, Friday, from 3 to 7 with the entire beer wall discounted. Then we have another Buffalo Bandits watch party away game against the Roughnecks at 9 p.m. with ticket giveaways. Plus, Bella Link's permanent jewelry will be in the house from 7 to 9, offering Bandits colored links and Buffalo charms. And finally, on March 25th, they have a spring doormat paint and sip pick out one of their different style doormats that they have. A lot of varieties offered, including a Welcome to Bandit Land doormat option. Grab a drink, paint away. All supplies are included with your ticket, but grab your ticket now as they have only a limited number available. For all other events, check out their Facebook page or go to tapthattaproom.com to see what's on tap and what's on deck, because they have something
for everyone, and something that everyone could be very happy with. What a transition. Christian Del Bianco is no longer held hostage. He's no longer stuck on his couch. He's no longer just known as a fantastic podcaster. He is now a member for life.
Coming to Buffalo.
Good try. He is now a full-time lifer in Vancouver. I was listening to the last class with Kurt Malowski on Wednesday. He pretty much said it's a lifetime contract. As long as Del Bianco is playing, he's not leaving Vancouver. Makes sense. He gets traded for Vancouver for Braden Lady, a 2025 first, a 2026 first, and a 2025 second. Now, to me, and from what it sounded like, I don't think this trade gets done unless the perfect storm hit, and it did. Calgary beats Buffalo, so they're sitting 7-6. They're feeling like they're a legit contender beating the defending titles. Vancouver lost to San Diego, so Vancouver doesn't seem like they have the offense to get it done this year. So, and we're going to get into it in a second, they moved Jonathan Peshko, who is one of their he's a rookie forward, so they're already moving more forwards off their team when they're already struggling to score. But they also move a young stud in Braden Lady, which you have to do when you're getting Christian Del Bianco. It makes sense. But this move to me is for the next 10 years, not the next 6 games for this. Plus, with the deal we're going to go over in a second, they were able to recoup a ton of picks. So in total, I mean, we can kind of hint at the next deal, and everybody's already seen it. It's a 4-team deal. They move Christian Del Bianco in a 2028 second-round pick they get Christian Del Bianco and a 2028 second-round pick for Peshko, Lady, a 2025 first, and a 2026 fourth. Is basically what it came down to. That is fantastic work from Kurt Malowski, getting a foundational piece who's still young. I think he's only 27 or 28 years old. That's going to be a cornerstone piece. You don't win championships in this league unless you have a franchise starting stud goalie. That's exactly what Christian Del Bianco is. They're loaded on the back end, even moving out Lady. If they can add some free agent and trade acquisitions of forwards next year, Vancouver is sitting perfectly to be a dynasty in the making.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, kind of like the Rush a little bit this year, where they're just very defensive heavy, or Toronto of old. Not the most explosive offense ever, but a just lockdown defense with an incredible goalie gets you really, really far in this league. And I think they're going to be that style. I don't think their offense is maybe ever going to be that high explosive, putting up 15, 16, averaging that kind of game in and game out. But with the goalie and defense they have, they don't need the offense to do that. They need the offense to be decent and average a pretty good score, but they're going to be in a lot of really low scoring games that they end up out on top of. And like you said, I think it ended up working really, really well for them. Yes, you had to give up some players and some picks, but that's going to happen when you get the former league MVP, goalie of the year, still young, still in his prime, really, really good Christian Del Bianco. So whenever you can get a player like that, you do whatever you possibly can to make that happen. And they did, like you said, cornerstone for the next probably decade plus. Who knows if he's going to play as long as Vince has. Vince, we saw the picture of him in Disney. The dude is still ridiculously jacked, and it is insane because he's a goalie, but maybe Christian can keep up with whatever Vince is doing as well and play that long. But incredible move, and like you said, more than anything, it's just great for the league to finally have it over. I know if it was any other league, which I think Priolo might have mentioned on his podcast, that if this kind of situation was in any other league, it'd be front page news all over the place, but because it's the NLL, they're obviously much smaller. It's not, but for those who do pay close attention to the league, this has been kind of a black cloud looming over what's going to happen. He's sitting out there and just on his podcast, which is fantastic, but it was kind of just one of those waiting for this to happen situations, but wasn't expected at all to happen, like you mentioned, at this deadline unless that perfect storm hit, and it did. Before I was going to ask you later, but before we move on from this, because it's kind of all wrapped into this, Vancouver did not get rid of any of their goaltending.
So it is. I was going to
go.
dive into this. There are, and Kurt Malowski mentioned this on last class. It wasn't supposed to be public knowledge, but the future considerations, and it was Daily Dive who mentioned it. After the season, it's going to be Aiden Walsh for Ticehurst. So I believe Vancouver probably wants Aiden Walsh in the lineup right now, just in case something happens to Christian Del Bianco, or he can't get to a certain location because of work obligations or anything like that. So Aiden Walsh is staying on the team for that. I think Aiden Walsh goes to Calgary after this for the future considerations, who is Ethan Ticehurst. And it ends up Calgary gets a stud goaltender if for some reason they can't keep Nick Rose. And I know everybody's saying like Vancouver, the goaltending wasn't the issue, but this isn't a trade for the next 6 games. This is a trade for the next 10 years. And while I think Aiden Walsh is going to be a great goaltender in this league, there's only one Christian Del Bianco. That's why you made this deal now, because Vancouver falls to 5-7. They got to leapfrog some teams and get help because of the head-to-head. But that is, to me, a big reason why they kept the 3 goaltenders, is because what happens if Christian Del Bianco does get hurt or can't travel to these certain games. Maybe he's already been clear with them, like, hey, I can't travel to these games because of work obligations and I'm getting married. So to me, that's why that future considerations, and that's why that is going to happen after the season, in my opinion. I'm not positive, but this seems like the vibe that's coming off of it.
And then what about O'Toole, who's supposed to be
I think he's going to be the backup for the future.
You think he's just going to... So these are the situations which are kind of unfortunate. So he's supposed to be one of the better goalie prospects coming into the league. Now he's stuck. He's stuck, right? Yeah. You're not getting ahead of Christian Del Bianco. And the other big thing with Christian has talked about plenty is that he's not become a UFA for years. So unless he gets traded, which, I mean, I'm sure a team could pry him away if they give him enough. Or give,
I don't think Christian is leaving. I think this
is
not
probably... Christian, Vancouver. Sorry, O'Toole.
Okay. I was going to say, I think
Christian. No.
I think this offseason you're going to see Del Bianco sign like an 8 or 10 year deal.
Yeah. No, not Christian. But if a team can offer Vancouver enough for O'Toole, possibly, because he is just simply going to sit as a backup forever, I could see that. But if they don't, and if Vancouver really wants him as their backup of the future, that's unfortunate for a prospect who was supposed to be one of the better goalie prospects coming out, who, I mean, he's stuck for a good amount of time. He's not going to leapfrog CBD ever. So now you're just sitting as a backup for, 6, 7, 8 years before you become a UFA. So just one of those situations that everybody's kind of talking about with the CBA and UFAs. And it's just unfortunate for a top goalie prospect who is now a permanent backup.
The thing that happened to Christian Del Bianco might now happen to O'Toole, but that's down the road. But the 4-team trade was something that's just mind-blowing, and I know the NLL kind of broke it down where it's like, okay, this trade happened, and then this trade happened, and then this trade happened. It's a 4-team deal, so we're kind of going to break down who got what, because I think that's the easiest way to handle it. In turn, Albany ends up with Jonathan Peshko. I think he ends up at Ottawa first, and then, but like I said, it's a 4-team trade. That's how they broke it down. But Albany gets Jonathan Peshko. It's Peshko, it's Simmons, and it's Kurtz on that right side for years to come. I know they took a bit of a step back this year. To me, it's less of a step back. It's more about like averaging out the differences between going to the finals last year ahead of time and kind of falling further than they probably should be this year. It's kind of like the average of the means, I think. But their forward group is disgusting. And I said it last year, and I'm going to keep saying it. This is a team that's going to be around for years to come if they can put it all together. But Peshko, with that forward group in Albany, it's a great addition.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to be, like you mentioned, I mean, there's really not too much else to say about that one. They're going to be loaded. Yes, some people said that they, possibly gave up too much for what they're getting in return, but Peshko is a really, really solid forward, and like you said, that forward room is extremely young, but in a really, really good way that they are going to be together forever, and they're going to be filthy for a very, very long time. Once they can put it all together, I mean, like you mentioned, they were already way ahead of schedule last year. This year, they've fallen too far backwards, but once they do put it all together again, I think even by next year, they can be right back to the top of the entire league and a terrifying team to play.
So Albany kind of shakes up their forward group a bit and gets a lot of picks in this deal as well. It seems like they realize that their forward group is not working, so they try to change it up. They get Travis Longboat, who comes over from Albany. Sam LaRue goes from Buffalo, so we wish him the best. He was on this show. I think he's going to actually get an opportunity out there in Ottawa, whether it's coming out the back door or the front door. They get a first in 2026, which is Albany's first round pick, loaded draft. They get a fourth from Vegas, used to own from Vegas in 2026, and a fourth that was owned by Vancouver in 2026. So they get a young player that's looking to kind of break his way into the league finally in LaRue. Longboat, who's more of a veteran in this league at this point. I think he's 27, and then a few picks. So Ottawa is kind of shaking up their forward group while also adding a pick for the future.
Yeah, I mean, LaRue will start there because he was part of the Bandits. I think it was just tough for him to find a spot to fit in, which is what we've said about pretty much everybody who joins this team.
Nate Konechnikov,
right.
Sam LaRue,
Nielsen
now, who's a future, but he's yes. Now he got another guy in front of him that can play forward on the right hand side also.
Right. I mean, in his time here, somehow, like we've mentioned a million times, he's still only 22. Ridiculous. I mean, if he just entered the league as a first round, draft pick this year for some reason, that's essentially what you're getting in LaRue, who is younger than Dooley still somehow. But he played in a combined 11 games for the Bandits in his 4 seasons, so it really wasn't anything against him. They tried him up on offense. There was no room. They tried him on defense. There was a little bit of room because of injuries, but still not too much room. And Dooley started to even take over that depth spot, who's now on the practice squad, which, they got even more players. And he's another one who is now stuck behind a logjam of talent because, you go to 4 straight finals, your team's looking pretty good. So this isn't really anything against LaRue. I think it'll be interesting to see more than anything where he fits into any team. I mean, again, the Bandits tried him on defense, tried him on offense. Who knows? He could be transition because he's done both. So I think for him, it'll be really interesting to see where he fits in Ottawa. And like you said, more than anything, hopefully he gets a good chance over there. He just wasn't going to be able to crack the lineup consistently with the Bandits because, again, the roster is just stacked. Longboat has been a Bandit killer in the past, so we know all about his offensive ability. And then the picks, the 2026 first, it's going to be huge. We already mentioned it. Even a fourth, which I don't really love in the NLL, could be big in that draft. So they got a couple of them. Maybe they can pair those, get up to a third, or just use them in future trades as well. So overall, not a bad haul for Ottawa. What they gave up was quite a bit, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, Vancouver is the next one we'll talk about. This one might be quicker because it's just some picks. They get a 2026 first-round pick, which belonged to Ottawa. They get a 2026 second, which was their own. They got it back in the McCulley deal. And 2028 second-round pick, which belongs to Buffalo. So they recoup what they sent out pretty much for Christian Del Bianco. And Kurt Malowski said it. He's never going to go into a draft without a first-round pick. He's able to do it again. And it's just, will he be able to keep the players he uses with this? Because he technically has, and he traded away Brock Haley to the Rush. That hurt. Now he traded away Peshko, but they're able to restock the cabinets that they sent out. And for Peshko, I think it was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's really impressive to lose all those draft picks for CBD and get them all right back. And like you said, especially that first round 2026, even the second, it's just impressive. They essentially got CBD for a couple players and no picks, which is really impressive to be able to get all that back. And like you said, get all that future draft capital. It is good to keep restocking those cabinets, and especially for a team that needs forwards. Hopefully they can find some young ones in 2026. So really impressive moves by their GM in general to be able to send a lot out, but get most of it back and your goaltender for the next decade.
So the last part of this, and I'm going to tie it into the first trade Buffalo made, and everybody was going crazy, like this is the only trade they're going to be. They traded Marquez White, who was a 2024 third-round pick last year, 35th overall, to San Diego. I believe he's from out there, for a 2026 second-round pick and a fourth that can become a second in 2028 if White is either on the team for the rest of the season here or next year. So if he plays for San Diego at any point this year or next, it becomes a second-round pick. So I think keeping him on the draft list might be smart for San Diego. But on top of those two picks, they use those in the deals as well in those They kind of use those to be able to make the 4-team deal where they get Kyle Matisse, who you and I have been begging for since his Philly days, Ron John, who is a legit, not superstar in the making, but a quiet name that's made his name around the league in the transition role between New York and Ottawa and even Colorado. They get a 2026 third-round pick, which belongs to Ottawa, and a 2028 fourth-round pick, which belongs to Vancouver. So in the end, with all these names that we've already mentioned, Buffalo has Kyle Matisse, Ron John, a 2025 third-round pick from Ottawa, a 2026 second-round pick from San Diego, a 2028 fourth-round pick from Vancouver, and a 2028 fourth-round pick, which can become a second, from San Diego. All they moved out was Marquise White, who is on the draft list right now for the Buffalo Bandits, Sam LaRue, who is a depth defender, a 2026 second-round pick, which they got from Vancouver in the McCulley deal, and a 2028 second-round pick. Steve Dietrich, unbelievable work. Like, from pulling this out of a rabbit's hat, like the thievery he did in this league right now is just filthy. It's ridiculous, the amount of talent that he's got and the ability to maneuver all these moves. Is just what they were able to do for very cheap is just stupid. It's not fair to the rest of the league. And I'm not even being a homer. I'm not trying to be biased. Looking from an outsider's perspective in, like, if this happened to any other team, I'd be like, and I even gave Vancouver their flowers, but what he was able to do is just, it's not fair to the rest of the GM. He's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Yeah, I mean, even everything they got, Ranjan alone. I know he's not a household name yet by any means, but he's had so far some solid seasons. He's very, very young, 26, transition player, a lot of caused turnovers, a couple points, a lot of loose balls. He's a player that's been pretty consistent in his young career, and I think he can be a very solid transition player for the Bandits. He's local, which is good for him. But no, I think him alone, just with his age, his talent, his transition ability, getting him for what they would have given up, I think, was solid to begin with. But to be able to get Kyle Matisse, a player that you and I are pretty much in love with, have been for a long time, a true transition player, and another player that is eerily similar, a lot older, but very similar to Ian McKay in the fact that he's played a lot of offense so far recently, but he's also played a lot of defense in his past, and McKay is doing something very similar of wherever the team needs him, he's going to play. If he needs to play defense a game, he'll play defense. If he needs to be up on offense, he'll play offense. Right now, I think I said that Matisse is 2 points away from being top 3 on the Bandits in points this year, so that's kind of where he slots in right away. He's not, in our opinion, and I will let you talk about it as well, but I don't think he's going to be a forward for this team. I think he's going to shift back to defense, but again, anytime they need him to step up and play offense, he's a player that can stay out there for long shifts and kind of double shift like Dane Smith does quite often, and he is, yes, 35, but oftentimes the NLL, that's still in your prime, maybe towards the end of it, but you're still in it for the most part. And the big thing about him, he's another huge mammoth player. He is 6'5", so having him, which they don't really have. I mean, they don't have it too much in general right now because they don't have Brandon Robinson either on the left side, but he's a player that can go up on offense from defense and just cause havoc. Like, yes, he's a player that can score points. He can score goals. He has a lot of assists this season, so he can play solid offense, but he can also just go up there and mix it up. He's 6'5". Go up there, cause havoc. I don't think that's really what they're going to have him do, but on transition, he can go up with 2-3 guys, sprint through the middle, and just bull rush everybody out of the play and have a great transition goal for somebody else. So he's going to be a very, very impressive player to add to this already loaded roster. And I saw a few podcasts say just, how do the Bandits keep getting away with doing this? Paul Dawson was the one last year. I think Kyle Matisse is a much bigger name than Paul Dawson, but his impact can be very similar. And he was a captain for the Philadelphia Wings when he was on that team. So he brings that veteran presence, that leadership that Paul Dawson brought. They didn't know what Dawson was really going to be able to bring to this team other than depth. And he brought block shots, he brought communication, and he brought veteran leadership. And that is more of what Matisse is going to be able to bring. And then Ron John's going to bring your younger transition player who looks really good as well. I mean, Buffalo, these two deals, and We'll see what happens next year. Obviously, it's a long ways away, but Matisse is a player that they could likely bring back if they wanted to, and very similar to Dawson, where came in the trade deadline and decided to stick it out for one more year, and we'll see what happens with Dawson as well. But Matisse might be able to stick around. That's a far ways away, but incredible work, especially like you said. Saw the Marquez White deal, and I was like, well, that's nice. It's all right. They didn't really do much to get better. And then all of a sudden, 16 hours after the deadline ends, we get this massive 4-team trade that, the Bandits actually got some extreme star power to add to their roster, plus a great young transition player. And they went from an okay trade deadline of doing something when we already admitted they probably don't need to do anything to, oh my gosh, what a great trade deadline. Nice job, Dietrich.
Yeah, I'll try to tie it into a little bow here. Matisse has been playing full-time righty forward since he arrived in New York/Ottawa. He's not going to be that role. Buffalo's already got 4 righties in the lineup, and none of those righties are coming out for Kyle Matisse. Matisse is going to go back to the transition/defense role that he was in Philly. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he gets back into that groove, because it's been 2 or 3 years since he was able to do that. So I'm not saying he can't. He's a veteran piece. He's a household name. So I fully expect that. But I think him in the transition role, like you said, he's a big time body that can get up the field. He's going to be a better shooter and a better facilitator in that type of role than we've seen Steve Priolo do in the last few games with Matt Spanger being out. So think of Matisse as a newer and improved Steve Priolo / Matt Spanger in that type of role. And you already mentioned his size. I think Ron John is going to be the more quiet player in this deal, where he's not that big of a name around the league, but he has made a name for himself around the league. So I do like that piece in it. I like all the draft picks they were able to reacquire. I mean, Marquez White, who knows if he would even get signed in Buffalo because he's from the West Coast. So being able to upgrade, able to upgrade into a second-round pick and possibly another second-round pick for a third-round pick that you just used, it's great work by Steve Dietrich. And then using those picks to restock the cabinets after the other deals that they made involving the 4-team deal. But my best guess, and the start of it has already happened, Dooley goes back to the practice squad to make room for this. You got Ian McKay, who goes full-time lefty forward. Scanlon's going to be a healthy scratch. Matisse goes to the transition role. Ron John kind of takes over for Sam LaRue, who is in the lineup. And then when Dylan Robinson does come back, if he does come back, Scanlon goes back to the practice squad. And then you have to decide, okay, between Nielsen and who on the back end is going to be the other healthy scratch. But that's down the road, and for all of you that were like,
problem to have.
Good. We've been saying that for multiple times. But the last thing before we kind of dive into the game, we're already like 42 minutes into the show. But for everybody saying like, oh, they're freaking out about the draft picks and stuff like that, don't worry about it. Like we tweeted it out. There's plenty of draft picks. I'll just run through it really quick. 2025, Buffalo's got their own second round picks. They got Buffalo and Phillies. Third round pick, they got Ottawa's. Buffalo's got their 4th and 5th and Saskatchewan's 5th round pick just in 2025 alone. 2026, they got a 1st, 2 seconds, a 4th, a 5th, and 2 6ths. 2027, they got 1 through 6, including Vegas' 6th. And then 2028, they got their own. They got their own 1st, they got their own 3rd, they got their own 4th, Vancouver's 4th, and San Diego's currently 4th, which could become a 2nd. They got their own 5th, and they got their own 6th plus Ottawa's 6th. So there's no shortage of draft picks in this cabinet. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be filthy for years to come, and Dietrich still has ammo to do stuff in the offseason next year and years to come. So don't think just because of this 14 deal where they moved out picks and the picks they got for Marquez White that their cabinets are bare. They're not. And what also is not bare, Phil, is our third sponsor of the show before we dive into our preview of Bandits versus Calgary Round 2, the Totally Buffalo Store.
The Totally Buffalo Store, their mission is to celebrate all things Buffalo with over 100 local artisans. They are the place to go when you need a gift for a friend or just want to shop around for something yourself. They offer 3 locations, one in the Midtowns at 3328 Sheridan Drive in Amherst, one in the Southtowns in 3459 Amelia Drive in Orchard Park, and one in the Northtowns, 467 Center Street in Lewiston.
It is St. Patrick's Day on Monday, but we all know, we already mentioned it at the start of the show, all the parties are going down this weekend. Make sure you head down to any of those 3 locations to snag your apparel. They got tumblers, they got headbands, bracelets, earrings, mugs, glassware, shirts. It's a nice weekend, but maybe you even want to grab a hoodie in case those chilly nights happen, or you wear one in the morning, maybe for the parade. Decorations they also got, so if you're hosting a party like I am, throw those decorations on the wall or on the tables or wherever else. They have anything you might need or want to for yourself, have for your party. They got piles of it littered everywhere across the store.
They had a hoodie with a leprechaun jumping through a table.
It's fantastic stuff.
I really love it.
Yeah, it's not only and we say it every week, because they're local artisans, each one is kind of unique, so you're not going to get what you get there at a box store. So that's why you got to shop small and shop local at the Totally Buffalo store. Fantastic stuff. To see all the pictures of all this stuff that they have, check out their Facebook and Instagram page. And to find out what else they got, go to the TotallyBuffaloStore.com. You will not be let down, especially for St. Patrick's Day. They're doing it right. And absolutely love their stuff. I'm probably going to have to stop down there before the party on Saturday. But we'll move forward here. Bandits versus Roughnecks, Part 2. They lost 17-11 on Saturday. We will not revisit that because it just happened. No need to revisit past wounds. Buffalo's coming in 9-2, Colorado 7-6. This is another matchup, the second time this year that the number 1 and number 2 scoring team matchup. Buffalo is first in the league, 14.09. That drastically keeps coming down from the 16 they had a few weeks ago. Calgary second, 12.92. And the goals against are a bit different, but again, remember, Nick Rose is now in net, so the number's a bit inflated from what it used to be, or what it is now. 10.82, which is 4th in the league for Buffalo, 12.46, 12th in the league for Calgary. Again, asterisks there. Buffalo power play continues to drop, 41%, 10th in the league. Calgary, lethal, 2nd, 53%. Penalty kill is very similar. Buffalo, 5th in the league, 59%. Calgary, 63%, 3rd place.
Yeah, I mean, what you just mentioned, the Buffalo Bandits are on a bit of a cold streak right now. I think the entire league knows that they're not playing as good as they had been earlier in the season, and I think they just need something to snap out of it. This is the game. Hopefully,
maybe the trades,
that they will do it. The trades will help a ton. I do think of the trades, I don't really want to go back to the whole thing, but I think one of the biggest benefits of the whole thing is getting Ian McKay back up to being a lefty forward. It's nothing against Scanlon, but I mentioned it the last few times now. The lefty forwards have been struggling quite a bit. Cloutier is just not doing what he needs to do, and I don't know if it's because McKay's not up there, if Scanlon and him just don't have the chemistry, because Scanlon's only in every few games, so they just haven't built it yet. So I think one of the biggest things about this trade is getting Ian McKay back up to a lefty forward. Hopefully that boosts that side of the offense, because right now it needs it. Hopefully it gets Cloutier back going. Hopefully they can feed off each other, and even Byrne's been struggling a little bit, but so is Dane. So hopefully both of them, the whole offense, hopefully can just take a step forward, with Matisse possibly stepping in every once in a while and McKay getting back up there. But this is the kind of game where the Bandits we've been waiting for it for a couple weeks now. They need to snap out of it. They're still fine. They're 9-2. They're still winning games. They're playing really tough opponents recently. Mentioned it before. They're playing a lot of desperate opponents who desperately need to win to stay in the playoffs. That changes things for the opponent as well. So hopefully this is the kind of game that they can get right a little bit. But that power play has been a big issue for a very, very long time now, and they do not seem to have the answer of a way to fix it. And I don't know if Matisse is somebody who can step in there and change it up a little bit with his size, and I don't know. They just do not have an answer for why the power play is not working, especially with the amount of talent they have.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we will kind of go over the Calgary players right now, but again, go listen to JC Solomon's interview with us on Wednesday. We kind of went into deeper detail on some of these players, so we're kind of going to breeze through because we went over it last week too, so why revisit and just spew out the same stuff we did last week. But Tanner Cook had the first 3 goals for Calgary in the game on Saturday. Number 12, you got Dane Doby, who is on IR right now when he was doubtful last week, but according to JC Solomon, he has a very legit chance to be back in this game on Saturday, and that would be a big boost. That would mean Braden Maya is coming out of the lineup, who went 3-3-6 with a ridiculous in midair goal on Matt Vince. Jesse King had 10 points for the righties. You had Curtis Dixon, who is just filthy. He's got 39 goals on the 39 goals on the season, leads the league. Hayden Dixon, again, No relation whatsoever between the two. Matthew Gauthier and Tyler Pace had 7 assists, so their offense, I don't think we did a good enough job last week to talk up how good they actually are, and that was without Dane Dobbie. Like, if you add Dane Dobbie to this, and that's no shot at Brandon Maya at all. It's just Dane Dobbie's at another level. He's in the top 6, top 7 of goal scoring in the entire NLL. It's just, if you add him back to it, he's not speedy, he's not quick, but he's so slippery and so elusive, and he knows where to be at the perfect time. If you add Dane Dobbie to this, I'm interested to see how Matisse and Ron John fill into this, but because it's going to be their first game, I'm a little nervous because of how hard picks, Cipriello even mentioned it, Calgary sets hard picks. I'm a little nervous about the communication, especially in the Roughnecks house. I can't remember what they call it.
I can't remember what they call it either.
It's Rough House? Rough House. They're going to have like 15,000, 16,000 people because it's St. Patrick's Day. So that is a little nerve-wracking. It's something to keep an eye on with the two new players into it and a team that's already been going through a little bit of a transition trying to figure out who their defense is on top of going against one of the best offenses in the league. That definitely worries me a bit.
Yeah, something you mentioned on the episode. I don't want to give all your secrets away, but it's also right here in black and white in the notes. Their shooting percentage is not something we brought up enough either. All of them are insane. Every single player, not one or two where they're top players. Like every single forward is over 20%. That's insane. Your entire offense, including your depth players, should not have over 20% shooting percentage. When, like you mentioned, Maya is coming in. He's shooting 33%. Only playing in 6 games. Hayden Dixon, 24.5%, only 10 games. Gauthier, when he's come in, 9 games, 20%. Like, your depth players shouldn't be scoring at a clip like that, and then let alone your stars doing it 31%, Curtis Dixon 26%, Pace 22%. So, yeah, their offense, ridiculous. And it was mentioned last time that if there was one place that the Bandits could be beat by Calgary, it was the depth and ability of their offense. And I think the Bandits saw it. And the biggest thing about this game is going to simply be how the Bandits respond. And I do think something we said a lot after last game's episode was they weren't ready for how physical Calgary's offense was. And like you said, Priolo mentioning how hard they set the picks. It was that idea. I really do not think the defense was prepared for a team like that because I don't think they've played a team like that all season. So now that they have, they know what Calgary is going to do on offense. I think if Dobbie gets back in the lineup, that changes kind of how you play per player, but you understand the physicality they're going to bring, and you know that you need to raise your game to another level of physicality to match theirs and not allow Curtis Dixon to do a wraparound, curl up to the top 4 times in a row while everybody else is getting picked. And then even like you said, Dobbie, if he gets in, he's not fast. He is physical, but the big thing that Vince struggled with last game was those slippery shots, and that is something he is extremely good at. So definitely a lot of concerns for the defense versus offense, but it's all about those adjustments. What can the Bandits do to change up what they did and to really come out on top in this game?
So we won't go over each individual defensive and transition player along with Nick Rose. But now that Buffalo has faced this defense that is in front of Nick Rose, they have a little bit more tape. This is the 3rd time seeing him. Yes, you're adding Braden Lady to this lineup on the defensive end as well. Bennett Smith, he was out last week, one of their best defenders. Will he be back in this one? I'm not sure because he's listed as a completely out last week. Same with John Lentz. So I personally am not expecting them to be back in. I could be completely wrong, but usually, if you're on your way back, you're at least listed doubtful. Same like Dane Dobbie, who was listed doubtful, but he has a chance to play this week. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Buffalo's offense makes those adjustments. And it seemed like they were a bit out of sorts. I mean, the game was very close up until the late stages of the 4th quarter. But with Ian McKay full-time forward, can this offense get a Dane and a Josh type of game that we're expecting and that we've expected all season long from them because, they've raised our expectations and our thoughts on them. Can we get a 7, 8, 9 point game from them? Because if you do, I think this offense can get back to where it is. I do agree. I was completely wrong about Ian McKay playing full-time forward because I said he was better in the transition role and I'm a big dummy, but Since he's been more in that transition role because of the injuries to Dylan Robinson and to Matt Spanger, he's had to play more of that transition role, more on the back end than the front end. So getting him full-time forward will be interesting to see how that helps here. But yeah, they have to make adjustments to what they saw. And this is the fourth time you face Nick Rose. It's not uncommon because Buffalo had faced Nick Rose like 5 times a couple years ago. So it has happened in the past. It's now you have the tape on Nick Rose behind this defense. What adjustments can you make to be able to beat this system and change how the defense has been playing you and played you last week?
Yeah, I mean, starting with Dane Smith, the first, I can't do the math that quickly, 7, 8, 9 games maybe. He was averaging at least 8 points a game, and the last 3 is at 4, 5, and 4. Right. So it's not going down a little bit from 8 to 7 or 10 to 6. You're going half of your amount of points that you've been getting, and he's done it for 3 straight games. Josh Byrne was a little bit more all over. He had some spike games and then some bad ones, and now he's kind of mellowed out at 5, 5, 6, 6, and 5. So him too, though. I mean, coming from his earlier games, he had 10, 11, 7, 12, 10. So that, again, those numbers are astronomical, but then he's dropped back to earth from 5, 5, 6, 5. But I think he's still up in the range about where you expect Josh Byrne to be, but because Dane has also taken such a massive step back, I think that's affecting Josh and his
facilitating
ability.
Has been affected, which has affected the whole offense. So, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we've talked about this before. This is not a shot against Josh whatsoever, but the offense seems to go where Dane Smith goes. So Dane Smith, the last 3 games, has struggled. He's not doing his normal assist thing either, where he gets no goals, but he still puts up 8 assists, and everyone's like, all right, that's Dane Smith. Having 4 points, 5 points, and 4 points, the offense runs through him. Even when, things are going bad, if he's still doing well, the offense will pick it up. Like if 1 or 2 other players are doing bad and he is still doing well, the whole offense as a whole won't suffer. But if he's not performing well, the whole offense takes a hit. So this needs to be a Dane Smith 8-point, 9-point game. He doesn't have to go, 12, 13 and explode, but he needs to be back to regular facilitating Dane Smith. And again, like you said, hopefully because they have tape on the defense of what they did last game, hopefully it'll be some adjustments. Hopefully Ian McKay hopping up on offense will help. And at the same time, we already know that there were, we mentioned it a lot. It was a game of inches last game.
Yep.
There were a few goals called back, 4, 5, something like that. So if those go the other way and the Bandits end up scoring 16 goals and hold Calgary a little bit harder on, not scoring right off all the called back goals, it could be a different game. We're talking about everything completely different. But because it's not, we need to talk about how it is, and Dane Smith just needs a bounce back game. He's had 3 down ones. That's too much of a streak. Having 1 or 2, he's human. That's all right. Having 3 or 4, that's starting to get too much of a habit.
So Phil, prediction for this game. We were way off last game. Style it in. What's your prediction for Buffalo versus Calgary Part 2?
I want a 14-11 victory to have some kind of statement that we are still the best team in the league. We can rebound. We can go to a hostile environment and take you down. I do think they're going to win. I do think they rebound, and you've mentioned it plenty of times throughout the entire season that it seems like it's very tough for teams to win back-to-back games in a row. So I think the numbers favor the Bandits. I'm going to keep it close, though. 13-12.
Wow. So the whole time you were talking, I've switched my score prediction 3 different times.
Oh, wow.
We have the same one. I started at 14-10, and then I talked myself into there's no way you're holding Calgary's offense to 10, and I had it 12-11, and then I'm like, there's no way there's only going to be 23 goals scored between these 2 teams, so I bumped it up 13-12. So we have the same score prediction. We're nearly an hour in, so this is probably going to be the fastest milestone minute we've ever had because we still got the NLL Outlook that we'll run through, but fastest milestone minute in all the land. Still looking for a sponsor for this. Duracell battery. Still waiting for you. All these possible milestones can be found on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. We post them leading up to each game. I've been on a roll for Blue Sky. You're welcome over there. So if you missed one of these, as I'm lightning quick through this, I'm Lightning McQueen from the movie Cars. Just the first one, not the second one. I hated the second one. And you don't want to listen back, you can check for them there. not as many as I was anticipating. Thank you, Bandits, for checking some off last week. Dane Smith is 2 assists away from tying John Grant for 7th place in NLL history. He averages 4.05 a game. Yes, 8 assists seems like a lot, but he's done it in the past. Steve Perillo, 5 penalty minutes away from tying Patrick Merrill for 8th place in NLL history. He averages 2.47 a game. Ian McKay is 4 points away from setting a new career high in points. Paul Dawson is 1 point away from 100 for his career. He averages .36 a game. If Justin Martin plays on Saturday, he will move into a tie with Chris White for 9th in games played in Buffalo Bandits history with 116. Chris Cloutier is 2 assists away from tying Pat McCready for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He's 4 away from tying Troy Cordingley for 9th. He averages 1.82 a game for his Bandits career. Chris Cloutier is also 5 points away from tying Darius Kilgore for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 3.43 a game for his Bandits career. 2 more. Nick Weiss is 2 penalty minutes away from tying Andy Ogilvie for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 1.67 a game for his Bandits career. And Dane Smith is 1 assist away from tying Sean Evans for 9th place in a single Bandits career set in 2019. He is 3 away from tying himself for 7th, set in 2018 and 2015, and he's 5 away from tying himself once again for 5th place, set in 2019.
I think you were at about 1 minute and 5 seconds, so pretty
so
good.
Close.
Pretty good.
So
it was a slightly slow fastest milestone.
It's because of Dane Smith's assists. Like, he hasn't gotten them, otherwise that would be wiped out.
Yeah, without that last one, you were done. You were all good.
Dane's fault.
It's Dane's fault, and if it's going to be his fault, he needs 9 assists this game. So.
Yeah, just check all these off, man. That's all I'm asking.
That's all we need is 9 assists. Ian McKay, he could get his new career high in points already in this game, and it is time. He needs to put up a hattie maybe, and then just add an assist, and we're all set. But really awesome to see that. I know he's a full-time forward for the most part. I know he's been bouncing back and forth a little bit more this season, every once in a while, but cool to see that I know he started as a forward way back when, before he was even brought into the league, but for him to still prove that he has it at such a high level and doing it so well is just a fun, interesting story that there's so many players throughout the league that you don't really know what they're capable of until they're put in these situations. Dane Smith's another one. I know he started at defense, but he's been the perennial, incredible offensive player every single season, yet he's playing so much of a two-way forward that is talked about a little bit more than I think it used to be, but he is double shifting constantly and does a really good job at it. McKay's similar, but the opposite, where he was playing so much defense. Now he's playing offense, and he's doing a really good job playing offense. And on a team that is loaded with forwards, I think he's 3rd on the team in points right now, and even that's with coming out the back door quite a bit as well still. So it just proves what he's able to do, and it's really, really impressive. Ian McKay, nice job.
Yeah, so we are a little over an hour here. We're going to do NLL Outlook. We're going to go back and forth. We're each going to give one thing that we're looking forward to in each of these games. So the first one, and these are all spread out, so you're going to be able to watch every single one of these. 10-3 Saskatchewan Rush heads to the 7-5 Halifax Thunderbirds Friday at 6 p.m. Phil, what are you looking for?
2 teams that didn't do anything at the deadline, but will Halifax rebound after their really hot streak? They cooled off. Can they rebound against such a talented team?
4-8 Toronto Rock heads to the 5-7 Vancouver Warriors. Del Bianco's first game Friday, 10 p.m. What are you looking for?
Yeah, Del Bianco's first game Friday at home. I think is a really cool thing for him to be in Vancouver. It's not an away game for his first game back. That's really interesting. Obviously, that is the probably headline of the entire week.
Yeah, you can kind of put Toronto's season out of grasp if you can defeat them. 7-5 Colorado, who just did lose Eli McLaughlin. Now they're down him and Zed Williams. Heads to the 5-7 5-game losing streak. Philadelphia Wings Saturday 1 p.m. Phil, what are you looking for?
Colorado's offense, will they ever have a full healthy season? I don't think so. They have some of the worst offensive luck ever, but Philly, it's now or never. Your season's over if you lose this game. Can you actually rebound against a injured team?
Especially after trading for those 3 defenders. 7-7 Rochester heads to 5-6 Ottawa. Buffalo is not the fewest games played anymore. They're tied with Ottawa. Saturday's 3 p.m. Weird times, though. I love it. Phil, what are you looking for?
Who is real in this game? Rochester's been on a heater, scoring in bunches. Ottawa has a really strong defense. Higgins been playing amazing goaltending. Ottawa's offense seems to disappear all the time. So it's pretty much Rochester's offense versus Ottawa's defense. Which one can hold up?
7-5 Georgia, 4-6 Albany, Saturday, 7 p.m.
4-9 Albany.
4-9. Thank you.
This game is kind of boring. Georgia should take care of business. We'll see. Albany, I don't know. They're a weird team this year, but they got a new offensive weapon. We'll see what Peshko can do in Albany.
And the final one, 3-10 Vegas heads to 6-6 San Diego Sunday, 4:30.
I think every time Vegas plays a team, it's just going to be upset alert. So we'll see if they can upset anybody the rest of the season. San Diego didn't do too much at the deadline either, so they didn't really do anything to push anything new. But Vegas shipping some players out. We'll see what they can do, and brought some in. I mean, they both had the trade with each other, so interesting to see players in different uniforms face off against each other.
That wraps up NL Outlook. Well done, Phil. We crushed that one. Anything else on this show before we shut it down? Get ready for St. Patrick's Day weekend. Head to Tap That Tap Room and Totally Buffalo Store to gear up for all that kind of stuff. I think they might still have some drinks at Tap That Tap Room that are green for St. Patrick's Day. But Phil, anything else on this episode before we shut it down?
Nope. Shut down. Get out. Go Bandits. Beat the Roughnecks. Have fun.
So we will talk Roughnecks Bandits on Monday's show. And have a safe and fun St. Patrick's Day weekend. I know a bunch of people are going to be out there partying. So
Enjoy
make sure you drive safe. If you drink, order an Uber. There's so many out there, and they're not that expensive. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room, Totally Buffalo Store, and Phrase Flowers for sponsoring this episode and this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Go. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article came out on Tuesday. Mine came out on Thursday. Give those a read. Check out our store and our link tree on our social media sites or at the shop tab atop the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time,